Julian felt the faint imprint of her teacup ring on the coffee table as I wiped it away with my sleeve. The mark was barely visible, a pale circle on dark wood, but my fingers paused there longer than necessary, as if erasing it too quickly would make something final before I was ready. The apartment was quiet in that early, held way it got when both of us were home but not touching. I had treated her with care because care felt natural. I remembered how she liked the window cracked at night, how she preferred soft music while cooking, how she leaned into my shoulder when we crossed busy streets. Engagement hadn't changed that rhythm. If anything, it had made me more attentive, more deliberate about the small things that build safety. I thought safety was love's proof. When she told me she needed space from any closeness, she said it calmly, seated across from me on the sofa, hands folded in her lap. Not anger, not tears, just a statement framed as self-awareness. She spoke about feeling overwhelmed, about needing distance to understand herself. She said it wasn't about me. She said it twice, like repetition could seal it. I listened without interrupting. My chest felt oddly cool, as if air had moved through it and taken something with it. I asked what space meant. She said less touching, fewer expectations, time alone even when we were together. She said it gently, like she was asking for a favor I could grant. I nodded because I didn't yet understand the cost. The days that followed were precise. I stopped reaching for her hand. I slept angled toward the edge of the bed. Conversations shortened, careful not to brush against anything that might be interpreted as pressure. She seemed relieved, lighter. I felt myself shrinking to accommodate a boundary that kept moving inward. I noticed how often she checked her phone now, the way her attention drifted mid-sentence. When I asked how she was feeling, she said better. When I asked where this left us, she said we'd see. The uncertainty sat between us like furniture, neither of us acknowledged but both navigated around. I didn't accuse. I didn't plead. Care had taught me restraint, and restraint became my default. I cooked dinner. I cleaned up. I gave her the space she asked for until space was all that remained. One evening, I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and watched her pack an overnight bag. She said she needed a night to herself. She kissed my cheek, light and efficient, and left before I could ask whether this was temporary or preparatory. The door clicked shut with a sound that stayed with me. I sat on the bed and noticed how quiet the room was without her breathing in it. The sheets were cool on her side. I realized then that closeness isn't only physical. It's the permission to exist without translating yourself. That permission had been revoked, politely. I made my decision without ceremony. There was no confrontation because nothing new would be said. I wrote a note, brief and honest, folded it once, and left it on the counter where her teacup ring had been. I didn't explain myself beyond the truth. I was stepping away because disappearing felt kinder than negotiating my own erasure. I packed what was mine while the apartment held still. Clothes that felt like me. Documents. A photo I didn't want to leave behind. I didn't take shared things. I didn't rearrange anything. Vanishing, I learned, can be orderly. I left without a word beyond the note. I turned my phone off not to punish, but to prevent myself from translating pain into persuasion. The night outside was cool and steady. I walked until my breathing found its rhythm again. Living elsewhere was disorienting at first. Silence arrived without warning. Then it softened. I slept through mornings. I ate when hungry. I noticed how my shoulders dropped when no one required me to be less present to make them comfortable. She reached out days later. Then again, messages that asked where I was, why I'd done this, whether we could talk. I waited before responding, not to control the timing, but to ensure my answer would be true. When I did reply, I said I wished her well and that I needed distance of my own. I didn't argue with her version of events. I didn't offer alternatives. Friends filled in the gaps with concern. Some thought disappearing was cruel. I listened and didn't defend myself. Care doesn't always look like staying. Sometimes it looks like refusing to perform closeness where none is wanted. Weeks passed. The engagement dissolved quietly. There were logistics, handled politely. No scenes. No revisions. I returned the ring with a note that thanked her for the honesty she'd offered, even if it arrived late. I don't know what she told herself about my absence. I know what it did for me. It clarified that care without reciprocity becomes self-neglect, and boundaries that only move one way aren't boundaries at all. Vanishing wasn't a tactic. It was the first complete sentence I'd spoken in months. And in the space that followed, I learned to recognize myself again, present, whole, and no longer asking permission to be close to my own life.